Whenever I think of Halo, I remember the profound impact it had on me as a budding teenager. So many of my early high school weekends were spent guzzling Mountain Dew and sitting way too close to my friend's 60-inch plasma, well, his parents' 60-inch plasma, playing split-screen Slayer. Somehow, as I became older, the titles began to land with me less and less, never really feeling as enthralled by Halo 4 and 5 as I was with the predecessors in the franchise. Perhaps as I got older, the rose-tinted glasses came off, and simply enjoying games became complicated. Possibly life just got in the way. Maybe 343 somewhere along the way had lost the recipe for the special sauce that Bungie initially infused into the franchise that defined first-person shooters for well over a decade. So, of course, when Halo Infinite's private multiplayer flights began a few months back, I wrote them off. I simply wasn't convinced the seemingly bungled Halo Infinite that we saw in July of 2020 would turn the ship around. Cut to this weekend where I have now played Halo Infinite on both PC and Xbox Series X, a proverbial 0 to 60. After years of Battle Royale titles heavily dominating the shooter space, I am beyond pleased to say that Halo is back with a return-to-form arena shooter that brings all of the franchise's best to the forefront while still innovating in unique and necessary ways. They've made me a believer. The test flight is fairly robust in what it offers, while also still being just a taste of the full game that is still to come. What I appreciate the most is that while the online multiplayer flights had specific windows of time to play online, there was an academy mode that allowed me to hop in and get my feet wet with weapon drills or Team Slayer against bots. Weapon drills have allowed me to not only practice my awful sniper skills, but also get familiar with several new weapons in the Spartan arsenal as well. Considering the number of new toys we have to decimate each other with in Halo Infinite, yeah, I wanted in on that. The matchmaking multiplayer this weekend features the various Team Slayer modes like Deathmatch and Stronghold, which have been featured in weeks past. However, for this flight specifically, Big Team Battle has also made an appearance, bolstering Capture the Flag, Total Control, and Team Deathmatch. As far as I'm concerned, this is my test flight, considering the potential for 12v12 matches to spiral out of control and into glorious chaos, even more so when you add Scorpion tank artillery, Banshee plasma, and Warthog turrets. Now, when it comes to actually playing Halo Infinite, I'm beyond impressed. Spartans feel like they have real weight as they toss around their half-ton bodies, clamber up vaults, and moon jump. But this doesn't necessarily translate to stiff or clunky gameplay. This stands in stark contrast to many games in the BR genre, and even Halo 5, which featured the directional booster that I frequently use to disengage from disadvantageous combat. This back-to-basics approach often forced me to shed bad habits or risk having my ass utterly handed to me. When discussing gunplay, I have to start by saying that a pistol has never felt so good. I know many of us herald the Halo Combat Evolved pistol as being one of the best Halo weapons of all time, but I think Infinite is definitely applying for the position with the MK50 Sidekick. Our remaining arsenal is littered with weapons we know and love, like the assault rifle or the BR, while also bringing new heavy hitters like the skewer or the heatwave that keep combat varied and chaotic, especially in the big team battle. Regardless of what weapon suits your fancy, all of them feel absolutely phenomenal to wield. Of course, amidst all the gunplay, we cannot forget how great grenades feel in Halo. Whether it is bouncing a frag off of a doorway and around a corner, or sticking an opponent with those blue bombs, our favorite handheld explosives feel damn near as good as they did back in the Halo 3 days. Now, Halo Infinite isn't purely fixated on how good the glory days felt. While there has been a heavy investment in bringing Halo back to basics, cues have been taken to give Halo slightly modern touch-ups where needed. The new deployable ordinances like temporary barriers, repulsors that launch back projectiles, or the grappling hook allow for Spartans to enhance their chosen playstyle. Honestly, I will still dearly miss old items like bubble shields, but if that is the trade-off for being able to grapple onto a flying Banshee and ejecting its pilot, well, that is a sacrifice I am more than willing to make.
You did that shit. You did that shit.
Classic camouflage and overshields have also made a comeback, but are not used immediately on pickup, instead being held onto until you activate them. A last piece of Halo Infinite that I want to celebrate is the AI that you can select from that will narrate your actions in game. At the moment, there seem to be 4 options of AI to choose from that all have unique personalities behind them. I personally found a kindred spirit in an excitable yet nervous AI that is aptly named Fret. Customizing the AI that narrates my gameplay allows me to tailor my matches in a deeply personal way that's completely unnecessary for 343 to have done, but very much appreciated.
Ugh, you are a walking horror movie, Spartan!
Now, I have to be pretty transparent here. Having played Infinite on PC and Xbox, I still find myself a little worried about optimization on PC. Inside my computer is a 2070 Super and an AMD Ryzen 3900X. Despite specs that are nothing to shake a stick at, I could not seem to maintain any stable frame rate whatsoever. On ultra settings with 100% resolution scaling, which is 1080p, I found a decent 50 to 60 FPS that never dipped too far down, but still felt a little janky. Dropping down to high settings with 100% resolution scaling graciously granted me a boost to a consistent 60 plus FPS. Oddly enough, during all of my testing, my CPU and GPU never really met their limits though. To add to this, Digital Foundry has remarked that the minimum frame rate settings also activate a dynamic resolution scaling setting on PC that sees graphics scaled down for temporary and sporadic frame boosts when necessary. The moments where DRS kicked in were definitely noticeable, primarily after respawning, despite the fact that, again, my computer specs were not being fully utilized. This feels odd and slightly frustrating considering how smooth the Xbox Series X was with Halo Infinite. Even assuming that DRS is always running on the console, I hardly noticed any frame issues when using quality or performance mode, and noticed far fewer instances of terrain popping in or textures clearing up as I did when I played on PC. For now, I'll say that if you have an Xbox Series X, this is the premier way to play Halo Infinite, but it does look like heavy investments are being put into optimization. Look, my experience with Halo Infinite has been an absolute blast. Considering the changes we've seen since 2020, I have a lot more faith in 343 than what I've had in the past. It is worth bearing in mind, however, that the campaign has been incredibly absent from being shown in any fashion, meaning we've only primarily seen 50% of the game. The praise the multiplayer modes have rightfully earned certainly instills some fear by setting a perhaps unattainably high bar for the campaign mode. As for now, though, I want to celebrate what 343 has achieved in resurrecting a beloved franchise that defined my teenage years and a generation of shooters. December 8th cannot come soon enough.
Tag one.